Sometime in October, it came to my attention that a Pokemon regional tournament would be coming to my hometown of Sacramento in late November. Now, I've been playing Pokemon since I was old enough to hold a Game Boy, so I thought, why shouldn't I enter this? Now, competitive Pokemon, or VGC, is something I've had an interest in for many years, but never found myself truly diving in. Partially because VGC is incredibly overwhelming to get into, and partially because, as an esport, it's heavily dominated by a LAN scene. I actually originally wanted to try and dip my toes into VGC back in like 2016 with Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, but found that to actually get points to qualify for Worlds or any big tournaments, I'd have to travel to events that were at a minimum 3 hours away, and at the time, that was not something I had the money to do. As someone from a MOBA esports background, this always shocked me, as ping and internet connection is hardly an issue for Pokemon, but that's a rant for another time. With only a month or so to prepare for the tournament, I decided I would give it my all and see how well I could do at a Pokemon tournament with practically zero competitive experience. So first off, what is VGC, or Video Game Championship? In most things, when you want to go pro or get competitive, especially in video games, you usually just play the game. And if you get good, then good shit, you're a competitive gamer, congrats. There might be some nuance between competitive game modes versus casual, ranked or not kind of deal, but the general gist of the game is usually the same. With Pokemon, however, when you play the game casually, you have a team of 6 and you throw out one little buddy at a time, and you fight one other little guy at a time. It's a 1v1 battle. What do you mean your mom lets you have 2? That's right, in competitive Pokemon, it's 100% doubles. They added doubles back in like Gen 3, and it's been almost exclusively used for competitive. You get a team of 6, but you only have to bring 4 of them to each match. You can't have repeats of Pokemon or items, and you can't use items other than the ones your Pokemon are holding. It's a drastically different game than what you experience as a casual player. Unless, of course, the only Pokemon game that you play is Pokemon Coliseum, because you're a Giga Chad with extremely good taste. Personally, I think one of Pokemon's biggest blunders is actually that doubles isn't more of a core part of the game for the casual experience, but that's a rant for another day. With only a month to prepare for the tournament, I had a lot of work to do. I mentioned earlier that competitive Pokemon is incredibly overwhelming, and that's because it's just a ton of data. The tournament would be using the current format, which was Regulation H, which meant that a lot of the really strong Pokemon were banned. Even with them removed, there are hundreds of different Pokemon you need to familiarize yourself with, all of which have 1 to 3 abilities, 4 different moves from a set of 10 to 30 different moves they could be using, a few dozen different items, and most confusingly for new people, EVs. EVs, or effort values, are an adjustable stat that you can add a limited amount of to each Pokemon to give it slightly more speed, attack, or defense. All of which can be the tiniest little detail that helps you get a victory. The current generation of Pokemon also brought about something called Terra Type. Terra Type's a new mechanic where once per game, you can change the type of your Pokemon to be any type. So you also have to prepare for that. VGC is just a lot, and I've honestly barely scratched the surface. Jumping into things was honestly extremely daunting, but one thing I did know was I was gonna need a team for the tournament, and that I didn't have a ton of time to figure out what it was gonna be. I loaded up all of the resources I had and got to work. My initial concept was something along the lines of, there is no way I can learn how to play VGC proper in a month. So I want to try and find a play style that can simplify things. My main 2 ideas were, maybe I can utilize Wheezing, which has the ability of neutralizing gas, which removes all other Pokemon's abilities, just so I wouldn't have to worry about, all of the abilities on the field, so long as, I kept Wheezing out. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a way to make this work for me, as it very quickly seemed like the strength of removing abilities relied heavily on a fundamental understanding of all the abilities and what people were trying to accomplish with them. Who'd have thought? My second approach to this theory was, what if I used a Gothitelle? Gothitelle has the ability Shadow Tag, which removed the opponent's ability to switch out their Pokemon. every turn in Pokemon you have 3 basic options. You can either protect, attack, or swap. I thought that removing swap as an option would simplify what I needed to try and think about what my opponent was trying to do. Which, again, left me in a position where if I wanted this to work, I needed an extremely strong understanding of the fundamentals of the game. So, team concept number 3. What if I just stopped trying to have a plan and just go all out hyper offense, bring fast Pokemon that do lots of damage, go, 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 go. A simple strategy, and I can try and hone and refine my plan over the next month. Alright, I actually ran this concept for quite a while, and I even put together a team that I brought to the online Grand Challenge 2, a tournament that was happening at the time. Quick little side note, if trying to practice Pokemon on your actual cartridge, you basically just have the in-game ranked ladder or these Grand Challenge events, and there's one decently major difference between playing online in these and how the actual tournaments go. Open Team Sheet. When playing online, you get 90 seconds at the start of each match to see what 6 Pokemon they're bringing, and that's all the info you get. You get to see what 6 Pokemon they have, and then you play the game, and then you get a new opponent. At the regional, however, you will have a sheet of paper that you show your opponent that shows your 6 Pokemon, what items they have, what moves they have, and what Terra type they are. As well as all matches played will be best of 3. Grand Challenge 2 I thought went really well. Not because I did well, but because I did okay. I more or less learned that hyper offense is fun, but bringing 6 fast, hard-hitting Pokemon ultimately means that they are frail. I found myself game after game being in a position where if I made even the slightest mistake when going for knockouts, it meant I lost the game, which felt kind of bad. It kind of felt like to play this, I need to have a strong understanding of the fundamentals of the game, blah blah blah, from earlier, but it was a tad different. I actually felt like I knew what I was doing and what I needed to do to win each game, but it just needed me to perform incredibly well and consistently throughout the entire match, which is something that comes with experience that I don't have yet. Playing in the Grand Challenge, I got to see a ton of different teams other people were using and kind of figure out more of what my options were and what I wanted or did not want to do. In my previous stints of trying my hand at VGC, I always found myself drawn towards things like size spam or trick room teams, as execution-wise, they're incredibly simple. Without getting into too many details on what these teams are, the main takeaway from them is that they're teams that have a plan. If they accomplish that plan, they win the game, more or less. The biggest negative to those teams, in my mind, was that the plan was inherently simple, which meant that most people had a pretty good idea on what they were doing to stop you. Or, they know what you're trying to go for, and, there's something in their team designed around stopping you from doing that thing. And I personally wasn't a big fan of that. The last type of team I found myself drawn to was something known as balance. Balance just means your Pokemon do pretty well no matter what the goal of your opponent is, and it doesn't necessarily have a goal of its own. It tends to have some fast Pokemon, some slow Pokemon, and it can find itself excelling in speed control or in Trick Room. After a ton of testing, the team I eventually landed on was Sneasler, Baxcalibur, Primarina, Electabuzz, Rillaboom, and King Gambit. Now with my team finally set, it was time to practice. At first the practice was a little rough, but some incredible members of the VGC community started coming by the live streams of my practice and were giving me a lot of tips. Even still, I was finding myself back in the seat of, is this team good enough, or am I just not good enough at using it? And then he appeared. A Twitch chatter by the name of Chunks. This guy came in and started just backseating me, offering me advice, straight up play-by-play insight on what I should be doing, and it blew me away. I was literally in shock at how accurate he seemed to be with what I needed to do and what my opponent was trying to do. And this gave me a 100% renewal of confidence in the team that I had put together. If this guy can figure out what I'm supposed to do, then why can't I? We eventually started chatting in DMs, and he showed me a ton of super cool resources I didn't know existed prior for practicing and taking notes, as well as informed me that to practice for the tournament, I should probably be playing on Pokemon Showdown instead of on the in-game ladder. I usually preferred to play on the in-game ladder for streams, as streaming Showdown is subpar to say the least. If you aren't familiar with Pokemon Showdown, it's a website that more or less simulates Pokemon battles, but it's visually just some PNGs and text. It's not much, but it gets the job done. I managed to maintain about a 50-50 win rate all the way leading up to the event on the in-game ladder, but on Showdown, I had about a 60% win rate on the best of 3 open team sheet format, which more accurately represented what I'd be experiencing at the event. Finally, the tournament was here. It was honestly kind of crazy walking up to an event in your hometown and just seeing this giant event building with a line wrapping all the way around it of just huge nerds here to play Pokemon. It was really cool. After getting our bags checked, we got checked into the tournament, and I was given a cool little sheet that had my team on it with all of the registered info and translated into a bunch of different languages. I thought this was super cool. Then we moved our way over to the main room of the event. I didn't have much time to scope out much at first, as almost immediately after entering the venue, they started calling the first match. Honestly, I was insanely nervous and kind of shaking, so I went straight to my assigned number for round 1 and started setting up while my partner Rebecca scoped out the rest of the venue. My nerves calmed down pretty quick, and honestly, I have the VGC community to thank for that. Every single person I interacted with was just so incredibly nice and friendly and helpful. I had zero idea what I was doing, but everyone around me was just, again, so friendly and helping and assisted me in figuring out what I was supposed to be doing and how I get set up and, all that. The actual tournament structure is, side note, the actual tournament structure is something known as Swiss. In Swiss, everyone plays the same number of rounds regardless of how you do, which is very different from a bracket or, tennis-style tournament that most people are used to, where after 1 or 2 losses, you're out of the event. For this event, there would be 8 rounds, and based on your record, you'll be placed against others with the same record. So let's say, for example, you win game 1, you have a record of 1-0. For the next match, you'll be placed against somebody else who also has the record of 1-0. And this will go until all 8 rounds are played. People with a certain score will make it to day 2 of the event and are then placed into the double elimination style bracket. Round 1 begins, and I'm incredibly anxious and overwhelmed, and I end up dropping the first game 0-2. My opponent was actually playing a team extremely similar to mine, and we ended up bonding over both being Baxcalibur enjoyers. The loss was actually fast enough that I got some time to catch up with Rebecca and see some of the venue myself, as well as calm down a little. After a quick circle around the venue, Rebecca dragged me over to one of the merch booths to show me some adorable Sylveon plushies. Ended up getting me one that used a magnet to ride on my shoulder, which I of course wore for the rest of the day. After looking over all the fun stuff from the other booths, which were mostly card game accessories and plushies, round 2 was finally called. My round 2 opponent was actually from Honduras, which was super cool. Getting to play someone who traveled from so far away just to play Pokemon, to me, is like, I don't know, it makes me all like giddy inside. Just a cool experience, I think. This match did end up going my way in a 2-0, which after losing the first round felt really nice. I also got to learn what happens when someone's team sheet isn't accurate, as at some point during game 1, they went to Terra their Ursaluna, and it Terra'd into Ghost type instead of Poison, which was marked on the sheet. Thankfully, it didn't make any difference during the match, and I helped them get their team sheet fixed so they didn't have any issues going forward. I think technically, according to the rules, I could have just been like, hey, whoa there, buddy, and called over a judge and got an auto win, but I'm just here to have fun. Next came round 3, which, very similar to round 1, felt like an absolute stomp. I got dumpstered by good old Golden Joe, otherwise known as Golden Go, the money man himself. At the end of game 2, I kind of started to figure out what I should have been doing, but, day late and dollar short. The rounds honestly were going really slow, as each round had to wait for everyone to finish before we went to the next round. By the time round 3 came to a close, it was about time to figure out lunch. This is the point where we learned that Pokemon tournaments were kind of brutal. There are no designated breaks throughout the entire event. Just 8 straight rounds of Pokemon that tend to last most of the day. Luckily for me, Rebecca wasn't actually playing, so she ran out and got us some Taco Bell. While she was gone, I was approached by a little girl who very excitingly commented on my Sylveon buddy riding on my shoulder. After talking for a bit about how much she likes Sylveon, she then asks, "What's your favorite Pokemon?" To which I replied, "It's Sylveon, obviously." She kind of just sat there for a little bit, and then replies, "I think Sylveon might be my favorite Pokemon too." And then does this dramatic gasp, I think I just found out what my favorite Pokemon is. And her eyes got so big, it was quite possibly the cutest thing I have ever experienced in my life. Next, she asked me where I got it and how much it was, telling me about how she only has so much of a budget. And after finding out the plush was slightly out of her budget, I end up informing her about the side PlayStation, which is where you can go essentially to buy in to little side events. And from these side events, you can win arcade tickets to buy stuff at an official Pokemon booth. So basically, I told a small child to consider gambling to try and win the plush. Maybe not my brightest play. She got really excited and was "Oh my gosh, thank you for the idea." And she ran off to tell her parents. It was at this time that round 4 was called. Round 4 was the first round where I played someone even remotely local to me, which honestly shocked me quite a bit. I knew it was a regional and that nearly 800 people signed up for this event, but still, Game 1, I was caught off guard by a Reveroom, as I hadn't seen that Pokemon a single time up to this point, and it hit shockingly hard. After a few adjustments, I was able to come back and win the next 2 games, bringing me to a 2-1 victory, which put my overall record to a nice 2-2. And just in time, Rebecca was back with lunch. While looking for Rebecca, I ran into someone else who happened to have a Sylveon plush on their shoulder in a similar spot to where I ran into the child. After chatting for a bit, I learned this was actually the mother of the child I had been talking to before. So, turns out, she didn't need to gamble, and she got her little Sylveon plush buddy of her own. After lunch, it was time for round 5, where I got to play against yet another faraway traveler, but this time from Canada. I started off really strong, winning game 1, and had an incredibly close game 2, but sadly fell apart and lost the set 1-2, putting me at 2-3. The rounds seemed to start going much faster at this point. My pattern continued as I won game 6, and then broke the pattern by winning game 7. With an overall record of 4-3, I went into the final round of the day with the solace that win or lose, I can't have a negative record. I once again took game 1 and had an extremely close game 2, but unfortunately did fall, ending my first ever Pokemon tournament with a 4-4 record. Despite never running into anyone from the local area throughout the tournament, I did run into someone from SoCal who informed me about the NorCal VGC Discord, and was able to close out my day by meeting up with them for a group photo. And it honestly felt really nice to have finally met up with some other local players and, learned that there are locals near me. Even though I didn't make it to day 2, we still ended up coming back on the next day, hoping to just relax and enjoy the event now that I wasn't actively running around trying to play my matches. I briefly mentioned before they had a side event booth, and today we were going to actually investigate what that was all about. Side events by themselves were nothing new to me, but these were a tad different. They did what I was used to for side events, such as, classic games, tournaments, etc., but they also had the option for you to sign up for something called a pod, which were basically mini brackets of VGC or TCG. TCG being the card game, the trading card game. You could sign up for the pods, and based on how you did, you got prizes. It basically worked like structured friendlies, which I thought was super cool. If you've ever been to a regular fighting game tournament, there's a friendly station or casual, whichever you want to call it, where you just get to, sit down at a spot and play whatever game you're there for with whoever walks on by. So I went over and took a look at what events they had going on for the day and found that 2 bigger events were scheduled at the same time, and they were the Classic Games Tournament and a Malamar Cup. After doing some research, I learned the Classics Game Tournament was utilizing the free play section of the venue. They had a bunch of N64s, Switches, and GameCubes set up running older random Pokemon games, and the event would be playing those. The Malamar Cup on the other hand, was just the same competitive format, but you had to hold your Switch upside down? It seemed fun and quirky, but after a full day of competitive Pokemon, I decided to sign up for the Classic Games tournament. I'll be completely honest, I had no idea what games the free play section had set up before I signed up for this event. My first game was Pokemon Puzzle League, which I have literally never played before in my life. This game is basically like Bejeweled or Candy Crush, and I don't really play those types of games like at all. The kid I was matched up against in round 1 was like kind of excited to basically teach me how to play the game while he simultaneously destroyed me at said game. There was a huge break after round 1, so I walked around and looked at what else there was to play in this tournament and was kind of shocked at what was chosen overall. There was Pokemon Puzzle League, Smash Brothers Ultimate, Pokemon Stadium 1 and 2 mini-games? It was all super funky, but honestly a nice refreshing change of pace. It's hard to take Pokemon Stadium mini-games that I haven't played since I was like 8 all too seriously, you know? Well, that's what I thought, but no! Round 2 of the event comes, and I get matched up with literally the father of the kid that just whooped me in Pokemon Puzzle League in a best of 5, of what is possibly the least competitively balanced game I have ever played. Pokemon Stadium 2's Furret's Frolic. The only controls were move and mash A to bounce little Pokeballs off the heads of a Furret. The goal is to try and move the Pokeballs into your assigned goal. Unlike the 3-0 whooping I had in the Puzzle League match, this was a full 5-game set of us trying to figure out if there was any way to truly be any good at this minigame, and I've never been more proud of anything in my life than I am now that I can say that I emerged victorious in the epic test of gaming known as Furret Frolic. Anyways, round 3 came around much faster than round 2 did, and I was quickly placed on yet another Pokemon Puzzle League station. Yay. This time it was in 2D? I guess the last one was 3D, and those are two different things? I really had no idea what was going on and didn't understand it much, but at least this time my opponent also had no idea what they were doing, and it was another close set of 5 games. I was gladly able to emerge victorious there as well, ending my side event with a record of 2-1. I then got to claim like a ton of event points that I was able to spend over at the official Pokemon booth, like some kind of arcade. After that, I went to go and try and sign up for the pods, because I had seen those earlier. Friendlies that award you some Pokemon merch at a huge discount sounded pretty dang sweet. There were 2 lines for the pods. We had 4-man pods and 8-man pods. The 4-man pod line had basically 0 people in it, while the 8-man pod had a wrapping line of like 20 plus. So I got in the 8-man pod line, as I assumed that's just where all the people were. After waiting for a little while, I learned that no one, and I mean nobody, had signed up for the 8-man pod VGC. To the point where there were none. There were no pods. So instead, I got back in line and signed up for the 4-man pod. Even in the 4-man pod, they were only able to get 3 people to sign up. But I played some matches and I got 2nd place out of 3. It was fun. I got prizes. Yippee! From here, Rebecca and I just went over to the ticket booth to try and exchange for some sweet merch, and like any good husband, I won my partner a big stuffed animal at the carnival. But it was a Pokemon tournament. Same thing. After waiting through the line, we moved over to the TCG area, as from there you could kind of see the stream games playing out the finals, since the actual seating for spectating was booked up. We opened up our loot, cheered on the final matches, and remembered that we're kind of old and very tired after 2 days of socializing and talking to people, thus ending our time at the Sacramento Regional. Overall, this experience was extremely cool. I had a really fun time preparing for the event and actually participating in it. I feel like some things could have gone a little bit better. I definitely feel like I performed all right. I think I could have done better, but I don't feel bad considering there were a lot of people there that have been playing a lot longer than I have that I did manage to outplace. Ultimately, Pokemon is Pokemon when it comes to competing. And sometimes you do well, sometimes you don't. Things just, one dire claw can really like make or break your game. But I had a really good time. I felt like the event was like super well ran, and I've never been to a esports type event like that was as structured as this one was. I really appreciated the structure. I felt like everything went really smoothly. I knew where everything was, how to get there, yada yada yada. One thing I really want to talk about though was that it really wasn't like I kept comparing it all throughout the video. I kept being like, oh my god, you know, I've been to Smash tournaments, I've been to fighting game tournaments. This wasn't a video game tournament. This was not an esports tournament. I've been to Dota tournaments, Counter-Strike tournaments. This was not one of those. This was a card game tournament. I mentioned that there were like 800 people. I think there ended up only being about 600 or so. Yeah, I got 330th place out of 644 at the end. And that's great. You know, I'm really happy. That's did better than half the people there. You know, I went 4-4, so it's about to be expected. But it really was a card game tournament. Even if you did well in VGC with, you know, video game, you got cards. Like, that's the prizes. It almost felt like VGC wasn't even the main tournament. It was a side event. The video game was like a side event to the card game tournament. Like, at the actual event, there was like a tiny little booth all the way to the left for like streaming stuff, and they had like one VGC game, one like Go station, and then one TCG, like one trading card game tournament going on, or like round happening at a time. And then there'd be this giant 70% of the venue was for the card game, and then like 20% of the venue all the way to the right, all the way in the right side of the venue, that was for the video game. And that was so absurd to me. Like, I almost want to make a full video just talking about the fact that VGC, which like the card game is based on the video game, like the video game came first, and it's one of the best sellers for Nintendo, right? Like, Scarlet and Violet is not a game that not a lot of people play. Everyone has, a lot of people have Scarlet and Violet, but there was 600 and something people, like 644 for the video game, and like 2,000 or something like that for the card game, and that is crazy to me. You know, I mentioned that I couldn't find anyone who was local, but actually post the event, you know, it's a few months after now at this point, I found out that there are a lot of TCG locals. I actually went to a VGC local, and I took first place. I'm very proud of myself on that one. But I believe the VGC local had about 5 people. Yeah, there was an official VGC local. I got like points for worlds and whatnot. I got like the whole. It was a tournament, and at the venue for this video game tournament, there were more people playing the card game, like in the middle of the store, just like casually for, you know, there just were tables set up where you could go play the card game if you wanted, you know, just come in if your buddy plays the card game. There were more people just casually in the venue playing TCG than there were in the VGC tournament. Like, that was actively happening, and that was, it like really solidified that VGC is a side event to TCG. I really want to make a video like diving into that because it's fascinating to me. But the experience, the event was incredible. I am so glad I did this. I feel like I got so much better at Pokemon, which was really, really cool. I feel like I got to meet a lot of new people. My partner Rebecca and I, we actually picked up TCG because we learned that there's a huge local scene here in Sacramento for the card game. For VGC, there's like 10 people apparently, but for TCG, there's events all the time, tons of different venues. We've been to a few TCG locals now. and that has been really fun to pick up and learn. Honestly, the experience was fantastic. My only other thoughts on it that are like a little negative was that the point system. The point system, apparently the card game has the point system too, the Swiss point system. I went 4-4, right? 4-4. And top 256, I want to say, got prizes. They got free Pokemon cards and such. I got 330th. I did not get free Pokemon cards and such. I missed it. If I went 5-3, I would have gotten cards. In fact, I also would have gotten cards if the 4 people, or I guess just like the 8, if the 8 people that I played placed better. Because you get points based on how your opponent placed, which was strange. Because like, I could have won game 2 against someone who lost game 1, and then that person went on a tear, and they lost their first 2 games and then won 6 in a row. I would have gotten more points for that. And there were other people that I could have beaten, or potentially, who ended up outplacing me because the people they lost to did better than the people I lost to. And that's, I don't know. I don't know how else they could have done it, but it feels weird to have played just like I placed as well as someone else. Like me and this other person also both went 4-4, but they got prizes and I didn't. People who went 4-4 got prizes, but I did not. I don't know. I don't know what they could have done differently. It just feels a little bit bad. I could have won, one more round and gone 5-3, and then whatever. But I'm really glad that I did this. And I'm looking forward to doing more stuff like this. I'm really excited. So I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. The next thing we're doing is actually, I'm going to learn Tekken 8. I've dabbled in Tekken in the past. I'm excited to see if I can be any decent at that game. We'll see. It's definitely a big jump from Pokemon, but I'm excited. We're going to see how it goes. If you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe so you can see future stuff. See you next time.